looks like what I want. That's the most important thing. You all will have so many people that come before your hotels or whatever hospitality interest that you have. As a leader, it's important to first of all consider what you want, not just for yourself, but what experience do you want your mother to have, your father, your wife, your children. We've all dined in restaurants where we've been made to feel fantastic. We've been in restaurants where we've been made to feel lesser. We've been in hotels where we've checked in or attempted to check in early and they made us feel fantastic, regardless of the fact of whether we came at 11 o'clock or whether we came at 3 o'clock. Or maybe you have the experience that I had yesterday where I went to a hotel at 3 o'clock and they told me, well, our policy is our room isn't ready till 4 o'clock. I don't care what your policy is. I'm here now and I need a room now. I have to go speak at 4 o'clock. Do you have anywhere I can get dressed? And so those situations that happen to us, the good and the bad, they're important because when you move forward with the proper heart and with love in your mind, when you go into hospitality or when you have hospitality objectives, just consider yourself and treat other people the same way that you want to be treated. If you do that, I think that you'll have a fantastic operation.
Right. Just to add a little bit to that, so I've in addition, I run a law firm now. I own a law firm, right? And for many years now. Prior to that, I ran two different hotel companies based in San Francisco, California, and was responsible for building actually the first ground up boutique hotel in the United States. I renovated four hotels, was responsible for the bottom line of nine hotels. And what it was always about training our team, teaching our team, training our team, empowering our team to provide two words: gracious hospitality. That's what Kevin just said. You can go somewhere, you can go to a billionaire's home and he treats you like a dog. You can go to a modest family's home and they treat you like royalty. And it's an attitudinal thing, and it comes down to gracious hospitality, and it's a wonderful thing. That's why I'm in this industry. That's why these folks are in this industry. So if you want to be in this industry and you want to be successful in this industry, you need to integrate that into your philosophy and your mantra in terms of how you operate in this industry. Stephanie, why don't you go?
I grew up in the South, and so this idea of Southern hospitality really reigns for me. And when I think about our travelers, I know that Charles has a lot of luxury hotels, and for Wyndham, our 25 brands, we have a focus on upper mid scale and economy. But the idea of cultural tourism is just what it is. Everybody seeks those activities and those interests, and they want to learn and they want to experience more. The difference is that not everyone can afford high end and luxury, but that doesn't matter because even our economy brands can deliver wow, amazing service. You just have to tap into your market and what your guests expect. So, for example, I have a travel lodge that's in Garner, Montana, that sits at the base of Yellowstone National Park. And so, yes, it's an economy branded hotel, but the touches that he adds in terms of setting up his sundry shop with the items and goods from the local area. So when the guests walk in, they see a touch of not just that hotel, but the area and the markets. And also these beautiful Adirondack chairs that sit outside so that guests can enjoy coffee outside while the sun rises. Those are details that once he covers the expense of the chairs, they're just experiences. And it just makes guests feel like I'm here for Yellowstone, I'm here for this area, and he's given me all of the opportunities to experience that area. It could be some of our hotels who have really, destination markets. Like, what are they doing to make sure that guest feels welcome? Where does technology play into that? Because you have operating efficiencies, but you also want to make sure that you're making contact with the guests. The job to me of a brand is to make sure that loyalty and marketing and everything we can do to drive a guest into that hotel. Well, what happens at that hotel is absolutely the owner knowing its market and knowing why that guest is there and over delivering on all the service elements. I feel so bad that 1 hour kept you from checking in because all of that did is make Kevin leery of that brand just because he couldn't get into that room. And it didn't, what did it save the hotel? That 1 hour.
Well, what's interesting is they actually let me into the room. He
Okay.
said, "Well, hey, will you take a handicap accessible room?" So I said, "Sure. I just need a room."
Okay.
And so I got into the room, but the problem is that that extra conversation wasn't needed.
Did it?
If he on the front end says, we have a room that's available that's handicap accessible, but it's a fantastic room. Check-in is usually 4, but I can get you into this room now
Exactly.
because I know you have somewhere important to get to.
Yep.
And so we have to find the right people, and I know it's a challenge for you,
Yep.
who have the emotional intelligence to be able to deal with customers to make our brands better.
100%.
So Stephanie and Charles, you speak to this too, and then we'll let Charles go. So, in running hotels, what I have learned and we practiced, the first 3 minutes of a guest's arrival and check-in, and if there's a bellman or whatever, or a doorman, that experience and what happens influences their entire stay. Things go wrong, of
Yep.
course, is then so.
It's the moment
Said
of
what
truth.
that's all about for everybody.
Yeah, it's the moment of truth, right? In that first moment, Kevin learned whether they cared about him as an individual, right? And that's so important. And what we do, it's about a personal touch, right? In our industry. But I want to back up a little bit on the, this whole experience thing, and we talk about brands. If we looked back 100 years ago and just a few decades ago, the brand largely defined your expectations. Like we sought out a certain brand because the brand conveyed trust. We knew that if something was, bought from, back in the day, Sears and Roebuck catalog, that it met a certain test, a certain quality, right? And so the same thing started happening in hotels, and we had consistent standards go across everybody underneath a certain flag. And we said that's where it is. But today, we talk about customer experience. What we're in is in a world where it's more important what the customer is saying about you as opposed to what you are saying about yourself, right? So back in those days, we used to broadly market, here's my product, and we have a king deluxe ultimate suite room, and we talk about how luxurious it was and everything. But all that flowery language means nothing today because people are going to look at your customer reviews and what's that customer saying about you. Now, nobody puts up a great review about you just delivering the basic, the standard. They talk about their experience. Were they warmly greeted? Like what we're talking about here with Kevin's experience and his arrival. Did you have those local touches, like what Stephanie was just talking about there at that travel lodge? And we have to find those connections. Another way we find those connections is through storytelling, right? So if there's a good story behind the hotel, and you see that in the branding doesn't have to be national. It can be local at that street corner, right? So how well do you connect to the neighborhood? What's the story, the backdrop behind your hotel? What was who are the characters in that unresolved conflict? How does that depth of concept penetrate into everything from the artwork to the food that they're being served in the restaurant to the words that we say that are part of our vernacular and our culture there on site? That's all real important, even down to the uniforms, right? And when you look at the uniforms, do they fit the story of the hotel that I'm walking in here today? So customer experience it drives so much more loyalty than just delivering the essentials.
So Stephanie, I have a question for you as president of La Quinta.
Yes.
So what Charles just said resonates, I think, with everybody. So how, as you as president, how do you kind of get that message down into, you had this experience with the travel lodge outside of Yellowstone, but that's different than being president of La Quinta. How do you get that down into La Quinta's properties and get the owners to buy into that and get them to create? They're all over the country, so they each have different stories. They're and different people who are working for them, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How does that look for you?
So it's funny you should say that. So I took over La Quinta in January of this year, and everyone asked me on day one, like, what are you going to do for this brand? I'm like, I have to understand our owners first. Anyone who comes in with a plan on day one didn't take the time to listen, right? So we spent a lot of time. I've been on the road a lot, and there's 3 steps to it. First of all, you have to make sure that the table stakes is cleanliness and a well-maintained room. It doesn't even matter about the experience if those are not accomplished. So you get that done. Then you can start dreaming and having aspirational aspects to the stay, like simple things like, what is the breakfast offering? If I'm in the South, are we having gravy and biscuits. Even something like coffee is such a controversial issue with our hotels because the Northeast wants, what do they want in the Northeast?
Green Mountain.
Well, they want Seattle's best. They want Starbucks. But down in Louisiana, what would they want? They want community, your chicory coffee, right? But those touches matter because if you are coming from the Northeast down to the Southeast, you kind of want to experience those things based on the settings that you're in. So we're looking at all aspects of not only how the room, like how for our guests, we're largely gray collar and blue collar. How does that guest use that room? When they leave in the morning, they've had a great workout, they had an amazing breakfast. When they come back, no one wants to eat on the bed. So how is the room set up in a way where I can live in the room as well as work in the room and relax in the room? And so we're doing touches, like things that we're interested in is a lot like technology, because I know that there are also labor issues. And so I think about my Auburn hotel, who has, that's Auburn University town. And so he has implemented, and we're starting to grow with this, what we call the Auburn Tiger robot. And it's a robot that knows the layout of the hotel and can deliver anything from the sundry shop to a blanket to the guest in the room. That allows the front desk agent not to leave the front desk and can actually take care of the guest in front of them. So different touches about embracing like their community, like in terms of our Southern football hotels that decorate in their kind of college colors, and those who want to do, elevated breakfasts. So we are really pushing quality and the experience for our owners, because we know that when that's done right, guests don't really look and explore other hotels. They come back to where they were taken care of and where they had a good experience. And they don't even mind if it's a couple dollars difference. Because you think about some of the things we do personally, your dry cleaners, who does your hair. It would take a bad experience for you to leave them. It's never really because they went up on cost. They went up a couple dollars. That's the difference. So when we take care of the guests in that stay and leave them wanting to come back, then that's the goal.
Right. Charles, do you have any thoughts about what Stephanie just said?
Tons. But it also, she talked about labor a little bit. You also talked about EBITDA and driving that a little bit. It kind of, there's another part of this that always has to be discussed, right? Is labor, of course, is the largest part of the cost structure of running a hotel. Depending upon whether it's limited service, full service, or whatever, that cost is going to be anywhere from the low 30% of your total expenses up into the mid 40s. And actually, of all the commercial real estate classes, Kevin being in food and beverage, that's the only other sister group to hotels that really understands the labor intensity and the capitalization intensity that's necessary, what we have in hospitality. But labor is, of course, it's a rising cost, and it's accelerating at a decelerating rate this year, but it's still accelerating. We've seen that increase by over 50%. Labor costs has increased by over 50% since 2019 in the hospitality sector. That's some 14.5 million people that we're talking about that the Bureau of Labor Statistics tracks. So back into this training. So we have to fine tune and balance this, this service and experience delivery with and lower turnover and keep high productivity all at the same time, so we can deliver at the bottom. And that's really, really tough to do, right? So we're out there saying you've got to be more productive. You got to clean more rooms per hour. You got to check more people in per hour. You got to serve more covers per hour. And we're trying to do that to meet the financial needs of the hotel and those owners, whether they be sophisticated private equity firms, REITs, or high net worth individuals. These guys, they all have the same important priority there, in controlling the costs. And then you have to drive this experience. So I'll tell you, like for us, we found it very important to implement a learning management system to help develop our team. So there's the required training that happens, right? You might have, everybody needs to go through OSHA or sexual harassment training. So, and then there is the There's developmental training that happens, like maybe a front desk person wants to learn how to do to pick up revenue management skills so they can become promotable to supervisor and management roles. And then there's its experiential skills, teaching people very much about the story of our hotel, the brand, what it is we're trying to accomplish here. So that learning management is really important, that, on the job training. And I would suggest to each of you that aspires to be a hotel owner, or if you are a hotel owner, ask yourself, does your management team or your management company deliver that? Do they have that core understanding of how to manage and engage the team member in all of this?
Continuing education is incredibly important. We have a lot of teams and a lot of GMs that have been around for a while, but how are they staying relevant as well?
Yeah.
Good morning. So my football coach always used to tell me, if you're 10 minutes early, you're 10 minutes late.
Oh man.
Don't. When the bourbon is so good.
No, when the bourbon is really good. No.
Excuse him.
Note to self, don't just check your phone for the time. Go back to your email and figure out why something might have been on your calendar at the wrong time. So anyway, sorry for apologizing.
No worries. Ron, introduce yourself as everybody else did.
Ron Cole. I manage a company organization called Pronghorn. If you were at the event last night, you probably had some of our beverages. We invest in Black and brown founders within the spirits space. So everything from bourbon to mezcal to vodka to all the things that help us enjoy celebrations. And we also have some mocktails for those that don't necessarily drink. But what's amazing is it's not just about investing in brands and helping them drive and grow and thrive and hopefully go towards an exit. We also are working with all the 3-tier systems, so suppliers, distributors, retailers, on-premise, off-premise, hoteliers, et cetera, on driving transformational talent, right? We have a recruitment arm within our team that helps just train, develop, and help change the landscape and change the look of the industry, because hospitality is for everybody. And as America continues to diversify, as the world continues to diversify, it's coming off of the World Cup. It's beautiful to see this many people from different parts of the world here in the US. Your workforce and the people building brands should look like the consumers that you serve. And that's what we're here to solve for.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Yeah.
So, Charles, following up a little bit on what you were saying. So we've seen increases in wages, but the statistics also show we've seen substantial increases in ADRs as well. And we haven't, in 2026, and I'm more familiar with California than obviously the rest of the country. But even in the toughest labor markets in California, particularly Los Angeles and San Diego, we've seen record years.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
but here's the challenge.
Finish the thought for a moment.
Oh yeah.
And so, it's important for us as an industry to recognize how we provide a living wage in downtown urban centers where people don't have to drive or commute 90 minutes or whatever to get to their job, which is a relatively low pay place, and have an expensive commute and all of that stuff, and to take care of their families, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? How, from you industry leaders, how do we deal with this issue of needing to provide that living wage for these people who work hard and are good and are great, ethical people, and yet produce returns on investment that compel the investment, and so that we continue to grow as an industry and don't price ourselves out of the market? And I think, Stephanie, like you said, as long as they don't have a bad experience, they're going to pay another $10, another 5, 10%, whatever it is, because that's what they're really there for. We're seeing and just to finish up that whole thought before I get your comments, the affordability issue, if you will, of the traveler. We're seeing more impact on mid-scale and economy product than we are seeing in the luxury and upper mid-scale segments. So that speaks to, there's a lot of disposable income out there. So how, as an industry and industry leaders, how do we navigate these uncharted waters that are complicated, I realize, but need to be charted? So thoughts, Stephanie, why don't you go, or it's either one of you.
But by the way, that is this is the conundrum. There's no easy answer to this, right? So at the end of the day, yes, we want to provide this great living wage to everybody. We want them to be developed. I can tell you, I started out as a line level employee in hospitality, making a basic wage of I think it was $4 and change an hour back then, and worked my way up to have my own company. And so more people need to understand and see that hospitality can be a career. But at the end of the day, not everybody is going to be a company executive, right? So there are a lot of folks who are going to spend their entire career as a housekeeper or as a dishwasher or cook. And so, yeah, we need to get to that living wage. But that's only going to get, there's the part in how we can make the workplace better, offer more benefits and so on, but those do all come at costs. And in this conundrum, we're seeing rising interest rates. So there's a higher cost, higher insurance rates, the higher labor costs and so on. So they've put pressures on the hotel model. And the only way you can cover for that then and then pay your team more is you also have to expect more from the customer in terms of rate. So rate has not grown since peak in 2018, 2019, we have not seen rate grow at a rate that exceeds CPI, unfortunately, right? So inflation has outpaced ADR. So while rates are higher, real ADR is actually still lower, unfortunately, in our industry. The exceptions are where it's paying up. There is a lot of people talk about this hollowing out the middle class, and that's really not true. If you look at the statistics, it shifted more to, there are more people who moved from lower middle class to core middle, and more people went from core middle to upper middle. And as you're seeing is that there is more upper upscale hotels and luxury hotels that are experiencing the benefit of this economic shift, as there is a lower percentage today in the, that are poor than there used to be. And so as that's developed out, people are paying up for those experiences, and the segments in our industry that have outperformed are those which are more experiential and which are more upper upscale and luxury. There's no doubt about that. And those employees are also benefiting from some of that. The biggest challenge, frankly, is for when we get to mid-scale and economy, that is really where this conundrum gets even tougher. And like what you're dealing with a lot of the the Wyndham properties.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're finding is that when you think about that K model, the wealthy weren't impacted. They're still staying at these upper upscale hotels. But what the frequency is where to your point, the conundrum. I'm no longer able to stay as often as I like at Charles's hotels. So I have to make decisions to travel more often and pay a little bit lesser rate. And that's fine, because what people love is to that experience is, I'm going to go stay at a clean, comfortable, well-maintained hotel so I can also indulge in cocktails, and I can also indulge in the beverage experiences I want when I want to go out. You think about when you travel, it's not just the hotel, it's everything to do in that city.
I have to interrupt.
Yeah.
She didn't say the word. They have to come stay at La Quinta.
Of course,
Yeah.
one of our 25 brands for sure. But those are the adjustments that we're making. We're actually seeing, just like to the presenters earlier, you hate to keep referencing COVID, but even coming out of COVID, people wanted to travel. They just had to travel differently. And that's what we're seeing. People are still traveling. They still want to stay. They want a great stay. They want the total experience. And I actually think that is the opportunity for mid-scale hotels.
And I think we need to be mindful too, with that question that he asked, it's been 5 minutes of conversation.
Yeah.
We got to keep it simple.
Yeah.
In order to address a labor problem, one of the easiest ways is to make more revenue. How do we make more revenue? When you have that customer captive in your hotel, treat that customer well. Make sure that they have extra towels if they ask for extra towels. Ensure that their room is clean before they come back the next day. And then that customer is more likely to be a repeat customer to your restaurant. Look at all of the square footage that's available to you. Activate every single space in your hotel space to ensure that you can increase your revenue. Do you have apples? Do you have fruit? Do you have a place where beverages can be acquired? And so again, one of the things that we're mindful of is not making excuses. We can always talk about the economy being bad. We can always talk about labor going up. But when you're a winner, you win. And you just have to find a way around it. And ultimately, within those hotels, what you do as an operator has to speak so much louder than what you could possibly say. And if you operate that way, you're going to win.
I'm just going to add to you. I just want one point is that you said if you ask for extra towels, you should get extra towels. I think owners have to be more predictive of what their guest needs. So if you have a reservation coming in with 2 adults and 2 children, and you normally put 3 towels, you have to anticipate that they're going to need more things. If someone's staying in a hotel room for 2 weeks on a project, they're going to need more hangers. They're going to need more coffee. Predicting, looking at that arrivals list and predicting what they need. And it's almost kind of like when that guest checks in and like, I've already taken care of these extra towels for you. Or I knew that you were coming in early. I saved you a room. I'm going to be sold out next week, but I know you come every week. Can I save you a room? I want to protect your room. Being predictive about what your guest needs, especially your repeat guests, because that's really the goal, is not to have to compete. Take such great care of them that all they want to do is come back to your hotel. They're not shopping around. They're not bothered by an additional rate because they know that you're going to take care of them and predict their needs.
Yeah, and
I think what
the
everyone,
hospitality, that's what this is about. This conference
Correct.
is about hospitality. And even when you speak of labor, a lot of times the labor problem exists because the wrong people are being paid. But when you pay the right people, they're worth whatever they're requesting, and they're going to take care of your business so that customer continues to come back. Your overall revenues are higher, and that slot is available to pay the labor too.
yeah, no, I mean, I think everyone's hitting on the same kind of concept. Value, right? Value. People have no problem paying for the right value. Create the right hospitality environment, create the right value, and people will show up and people will spend dollars, right? It's not about necessarily, and it happens in every single category. The World Cup was just here. People complain for the last year on the price of tickets. All of them were sold out.
Yeah.
From all around the world. People buying tickets within 24 hours because your team just won and now you have to travel to a different city. People will pay for value, right? There's nothing worse than walking into a hotel and the coffee's cold. I'm an early wake up person at 6 o'clock. There's 3 people at the desk and they're like, oh, we haven't gotten the coffee out. What you been doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, like what, like those are simple things, right? And so paying the right people, and creating the right value that creates the experiences that people want, and people will pay that extra $10 a night or $20 a night that might actually help the P&L from a different perspective. And we see it in spirits as well. The fastest growing parts of spirits are the upper premium, super premium brands. It's not the $20 vodka, it's the $70 vodka, right? And so it's interesting, this conundrum, because when you have the right value system and you demonstrate that value, people will pay for it.
So Kevin, I want to go back to you for a moment and related to what we were talking about here and what you're navigating through say kitchen and cocktails, how you balance these rising cost situations, both in foods and labor, et cetera, and providing that experience and still delivering value. And not me personally, I have noticed in the past 12 months that the restaurant bills that you get are just enormously more than what I'm used to. I'm getting used to it, sort of. But how, I mean, you have to deal with that every day, 24/7, 365. How are you dealing with all of that? And what are you doing?
We keep things core. We have to provide good food, good drinks, and good experiences. And when you provide good food, good drinks, and good experiences and care for your customers, they're going to come back. And there are some restaurants that I may not want to spend to go to today, but maybe I'll spend to go to them the next month. Everybody deserves a right to eat, and it may be a meal that's 70 per customer one day. It may be a meal that's $10 per customer the next day. But again, it comes down to the core principles, delivering hospitality. When these customers walk through our doors, they're not coming solely for food. If you solely want food, you go to a drive-through, you go to the grocery store, and you could make it yourself, and that's that. When customers come to our restaurant, they want the experience. They want to be welcome. They want to be treated good. They want to hear good music. You know, it has to go beyond just food and drinks, and there has to be a complete formula of what it takes to make the guest happy. If you create that, if you present that, the guests will come. If they don't come, then you make an adjustment. But again, I think we have to be very, very careful of saying food costs are higher, we can't win. Of saying labor costs are higher, we can't win. We can win. The opportunity is here. They're going to buy food from somewhere. We just have to make sure we perform in such a way and respect our customers so much that we're blessed enough that they choose us.
Okay, good. Okay, I want to shift gears a little bit. So in terms of travel patterns, and we're seeing definitely an uptick in the amount of group bookings and convention bookings, but we're also seeing a downtick in the length of stay of the transient corporate traveler, and a different shift in even maybe a downtick in the length of stay of the leisure traveler, which I think, Stephanie, you referred to a little bit before. So I want to, what is your observations in all of that, and how are you capitalizing on that within your organizations?
Yeah, I'll just say that during the pandemic, we saw this anomaly where there was a lot of stimulus money that was put out there, and I actually had some extended stay hotels at the time, and some economy in there as well, and there was quite the benefit at that point in time. There were folks who had bad credit and couldn't necessarily get an apartment and pay first and last month's rent, or didn't have their own bed to bring to their room, or and so on. And they were now checking into hotels with stimulus money, and they were paying week to week. They didn't have to have a credit check. They didn't have to pay first and last month's rent. They could just pay for the week and pay for a week at a time. And so we saw a tremendous amount of money, hundreds of billions of dollars, go out there that helped drive that extended stay up. And people were actually turning these hotels into residences. Since then, we've seen that now, gradually unwind. And that's part of the trend that we're looking at in the declining length of stay. That's a piece of it. Another piece of it is, a lot of people talk about the resiliency of the customer. And it's amazing how much they just keep spending. But that's starting to break. We're seeing some cracks in that, at a certain segment of the economy, or a certain segment of the customer is running up credit card debt. There's, they're defaulting on their car loans. And so there's some pressure points there that are creating some breaking points that are a bit of a stress that's helping push down length of stay. So we got that a little bit in the backdrop, that there's a larger economic thing that's going on here. This year to date, we saw a little bit of a surprise. None of the talking heads expected revenue per available room in our industry to pick up at the rate that it did. And there were a couple of reasons for that. One, the outbound U.S. traveler that would go out and travel internationally, the rate of that growth decelerated, so that more of them stayed at home. Two, we saw actually international travel that had been declining at a rate. It's not declining as fast as it was. So we closed the gap of, we'll say, the net import of the customer, but it's going outbound versus staying inbound. And that was the first time we've seen that since 2019. That's partially because of global pressure, the war in Iran and so on that's going on, right? And so people feel more comfortable and safer in the United States than they do in a lot of other countries. So that helped us here through the first part of the year. But I think some of that's going to kind of back off as we go forward. So what do we do as an industry? One of the things that we can do, and we spend a lot of time on, is giving them reasons to stay, extend their stay when they're in town. So you're traveling here for business. We want to make sure that they see all the wonderful things about this town that they can do while they're here. And if you got to be at the NABHOOD conference and you got to be here, say Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, why might you want to stay Friday night and go explore Miami? So we do things like, bounce back an email back to them, say, hey, planning for your stay. Here's some things you can do. We can help you with ticket price, purchase tickets or fares, or make these connections for you and drive other experiences. And the more that customer engages in those experiences in their surrounding community, the more likely they are to also rate your hotel well.
So just quick follow-up question. So
Mhm.
bleisure
Absolutely.
is a real thing.
It is.
And and besides just getting tickets or available, do you give, say, a business traveler specific promotions if they bring their family and they stay an extra, to Friday and Saturday night, let's say? What do you specifically do to make that more attractive to your corporate business?
Yeah, we do. So we put that when we show them what the options are to do in the area. We're encouraging that. Honestly, it's a small percentage that ends up bringing their family in. Like that doesn't end up being a very high take. I wish it was more, but there are other ways to drive those ancillary revenues and experiences. And by the way, yeah, some of these translate into ancillary revenues. So, for example, when we sell tickets or third-party outfitter experiences, we can scrape a commission of a few percent back to our business. So that's an ancillary revenue. They're booking somebody else's event, but because they booked it through our website, we create a few percentage of income. And I'm assuming, by the way, I saw you had a photographer running around in your place last night. I'm assuming there's probably something like that going on there as well, that there's probably a percent that stays within Kitchen and Cocktails. Is that a fair question?
Yeah, 100%. And that's what we talk about when we say maximizing opportunities. In all my restaurants across the country, we have photographers that take photographs, and our percentage of it is 40%. We'll make 7 figures on that this year, but it's taking advantage of what's available to us so that we can try to win with the options that we have with our space.
Yeah, and again, whether it's hotels, and obviously that's what we're focused on today, but the consumer is just continuing to change, right? Consumers as people post-COVID, I think the value of connection with people that you haven't connected with has skyrocketed. The next generation of folks are used to doing things more together, right? The generations that are from the baby boomers down now to Generation Z, people are living longer, they're traveling longer, they're wanting to do more group things. There's an insight there that you have to tap into, and you just have to think about how to do some things differently. I can tell you as a business traveler, one of the things that drives me nuts about hotels, right? Nuts. Happened here yesterday. I get in the morning and I have nowhere to go. I can't get into a room early. Would I pay more to get into a room at 10 o'clock in the morning? Yes. And guess what? Every time I came to that town, what hotel would I go to? Can I have a later check? Yes. Where would I go? Right? Maybe you don't charge me a full night, charge me a half the night. I'm not paying for it. The company is like people that are traveling on business, think about it that way, but think about the value of that. Trying to take a conference call in that lobby. I'm going around the coffee shops trying to find somewhere quiet just to be able to jump on my earphones, right? There are so many little things, and I think Kevin hit on it, right? I live in Atlanta. I had a chance to go to Kitchen and Cocktails in Atlanta. Brought my mom with me, my wife with me, my daughter with me. Next thing you know, we're getting pictures. My daughter, who's 15, she's doing Snapchat from the rose wall in the background. She's already asked when we going back. She wants to bring her friends. Experiences and value creation can do so much for what people want to pay. And then also, just as the consumer changes, being on the pulse of that and adapting your properties and your offerings to meet those needs.
Hey, Ron, you make a really, really good point from a consumer perspective. We're a little different because we're not hotel owners
Right.
and operators, but even before I book a hotel,
will
one of
be.
the first things I'll do is go online and see what the gym looks like.
That's right.
And that's something that's disregarded. So when you talk about hotel revenue being down and looking for opportunities to pay labor,
Right.
well, hey, let's stop within first.
Mhm.
On Pinterest, on
Right.
the Marriott site, do you have proper photos that give the best reflection of your
Right.
hotel? Are you investing in the best hotel gym equipment so guests are more likely to come again?
Exactly right.
Do you have experiences so that business traveler may be willing to bring their family
That's right.
because you've got a space downstairs that's not being reserved often, but we've created a kids room. So
That's
now
right.
you can bring your minor children downstairs and they have somewhere that they can play in. And the cost of that is going to be $2,000 a
That's
day
right.
also. So I think the hotel industry is such a traditional one. I think that you all are, or often it seems like you're continuing with the norms instead of working to create to make your spaces better. And it doesn't matter whether you're in a Hampton Inn, a Motel 6, a La Quinta, or a Marriott. There's so many opportunities to make these places better and to increase revenue because you have the real estate.
You know, and it's interesting you say that. Back to the gym piece. One of the first things I do when I check in a hotel is I say, hey, I like to run. Do you have a running route? Half the time I get a blank stare. Like, if you just go outside and go, versus, you know how simple and cheap it is to just go, what are the 5 best running routes for a walker, a runner, someone who wants to feel safe, blah, 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 whatever it may be, and just have some cards printed. That's just a value creation. I just stayed at a property. I like to glamp. I like to go out in woods and not the woods, like glamping. So like, it's a brand called AutoCamp, and I've done some that called postcard cabins or getaway house or under canvas and things of that nature. I was just in Asheville, go to AutoCamp for the first time. As I'm signing in, right, checking out how I'm gonna get into my room, right, it just clicks me with like, here's a suggested 3-day itinerary.
Exactly.
You know how easy that made it for me to plan what hikes I wanted to go on, what restaurants I wanted to go to. I didn't have to go to ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude to go tell me the 10 things I need to do. Through the hotel property, it created value for me. Then it was easy for me to plan because I'm a busy individual and obviously I can't manage my calendar. And it helped me have a really great 3 days with my wife. We probably would have stayed an extra day, but that's a different topic.
You know, cruise lines have been doing that for a long time because you arrive, the boat doesn't leave till 4
That's right.
o'clock, and they paint the picture of what you can do before that. But to Charles's point, we're doing it the same way. We're trying to get the guests as soon as they book to tell them what's in the area. We use a lot of social media influencers to show off the hotel, but more importantly, show off what you can do in this area. And then we turn around also and do some of the bounce back, like, why don't you stay an extra day? We have this discounted rate for you to come stay an extra day, or even stay late. Loyalty factors into it a lot too. Like we want to make sure that our guests who have proven that they stay with us are cared for the most. So we want to make sure that they get competitive rates, that we're inviting them back to the hotels, especially, you know, like right now, you know, there was this period, especially around COVID, where some of our owners weren't investing back in the hotel. So the rubber meets the road with how good the quality of the hotel is. But once you do that, you then have to new photos showing off all the different amenities that you have. And then you also have to have someone telling the story about your new hotel and inviting guests back to your hotel and putting it in their mind like, oh, well, my flight's not until 8. I probably could stay one more day and stay one more day or do a late checkout. But creating for them what's possible to me is where AI and technology has to do it. And you're serving two masters because my mom does not want to get on a kiosk and try to figure out where she needs to stay. She wants to talk to every front desk agent and have a cup of coffee with them and run her mouth, which is lovely because she's still traveling. But then my niece doesn't want to talk to anybody. She wants to walk right by everybody. She wants to know what's on the menu here. Where can she go get this cocktail? And so you do have to be inventive and thinking about your guests. And that's why I said when I took over, I really wanted to understand our guests. I wanted to understand what they use, how they used it. We think about white collar, but really this, white collar is not necessarily the 3-piece suit. White collar could be the person who's over the supervisor, over the blue collar team. How do they want to use the room? How do they want to stay at the hotel? And once you figure that out, you have to change it based on the complexion of that guest, but it's worth it.
Yeah, and I think Kevin said this or alluded to it. Like it would be very hard for someone to get me to stay an extra day because I'm booking my flights before I book my hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want me to stay an extra day, unless you're paying for my flight change, it's not going to happen, right? But what you can do is you can get me to spend more when I'm there,
Mm-hmm.
right? So back to the photography piece, right? I don't know what percentage of people actually do it, but let's just say 20% of the restaurant takes that. That is just getting more dollars while they're there. So I don't care what tier of hotel it is. If you were taking you were taking your man out, you were taking your lady out, right? You tell me you can't upcharge for a $20 bottle of champagne to a room. It doesn't matter if you're in a Days Inn or you're in a Ritz-Carlton. Ritz-Carlton's gonna cost you $500 for that, but someone else might charge you $20. Well, what if 30% of your hotel stays over the next 6 months
Did it.
did a $25 incremental charge because they were just having a night out and they wanted to feel just as good as someone staying at the really nice hotel, but maybe I'm not at the most nice hotel, but I can spend another $25 to do something special for my partner. Things like that are just getting more spend, more dollars, more value, more wages when they're there, right? And there are a number of different ways to do that.
Hey Ron, let's do some business. We're gonna help the industry out, and we're gonna help ourselves out too.
Yeah.
And so, when you go to the front desk of a hotel, imagine you're at a fantastic La Quinta Inn, and that front desk agent says, would you like a dinner reservation? There's a kitchen and cocktails by Kevin Kelley that's down the street. Well, sure, I'm hungry. They go to the restaurant, they have food, they have drink, and then maybe they walk out looking as happy as you look last night because I saw you were having a good time, right? Then they return back to the hotel. Now they want some water. Well, you know what? I'm going to have some water. Maybe it's a little earlier in the night, and they have some Pronghorn beverages that are available too. Well, I'm going to crack open this Pronghorn beverage. I'm going to have a good time too. They get up, they leave in the morning, but now they've had an experience that's beyond just going to the front desk, going to the room, laying down, leaving. That restaurant connection is now associated with you. That beverage in the room and that experience is now associated with you. And so now you've done more than provide lodging, you provided experiences also. You see, experiences don't have to be trampolines. They don't have to be clowns and balloons being blown. There can be other things that are a part of our day-to-day life that make us better. And that's what the industry can do.
And every brand can do it. Every brand and every tier can do it.
And every local municipality has the incentive to do it, right? Like if you're a hotel owner, you're in the town and you don't know your local congressman, you don't know the people who are running the city, you don't know what other tax benefits there could be, or there are other incentives to go, we want to keep the dollars within this 5-mile radius. There are so many opportunities, and Kevin's hitting on one that is easy to execute, and everyone wins. Everyone wins.
I see we have our next standards, don't we?
That's right. That's right.
Right. So furthering into that conversation a little bit, which I totally agree with it in so many respects. However, I typically do book my hotel first
You do.
and then my flights. And so I want to be where I want to be when I want to be there. And then I find flights that accommodate what I want. So there's different strokes for different folks. Like,
Quick question. I'm sorry, it's a little polling. Is that when you're going to like conferences and events like this, where when you register, it leads you to a booking page, or do you do that in general? Like if you're just traveling on your own, would you book the hotel room first?
I think that's generally the case for me.
Okay.
How long, if I'm traveling to Italy or wherever I'm traveling, how long do I want to be in that city, and where am I going to stay in that city? And then I'm going to arrange my transportation to wherever I'm planning to go. With a conference, like, should I stay an extra? Should I come in a day early? Should I come in?
Yeah.
And then somewhat I know that the flights, if changes in time zones and this and that, will dictate some of my decision making in that regard.
The general trend is when you follow a booking link like this conference, you would book your hotel before the flight, but the retail customer very often does what Ron did, and they book their flight and then figure out where they're going to stay. So it is an interesting piece again.
Yeah.
Think about if you can attach yourself to the thing that people are going to do when they go to that town, then you have a better shot at controlling the length of stay.
So I want to kind of move into what we're talking about a little bit here, and we would be remiss if we didn't, bring in the ideas of AI. And I think Kevin was saying that this industry is very conventional and not forward thinking. I would take exception to that right now, Kevin. And I think many of the brands, if not all of the brands, are spending whatever they can to further develop. I, for one, am working with an organization that is developing an AI concierge. And so to accomplish what you were saying about linking up the restaurant with the front desk experience, and all of these are being considered. And
Well, I disagree. I didn't say that. I do think the industry is forward thinking. So don't put that on me. But I think the industry is forward thinking for the luxury traveler. I think they're getting more of the advantages of the new technology, of the AI, of all the amenities. And my position is that at a lower or lesser scale, I think it can be done there too. I just think it should be done and it's not been done. But I think the industry is for sure forward thinking.
Fair enough. And so that in many ways is what AI can bring to the lower levels, because you don't have the same concierge. You don't even have someone who's qualified to be a concierge, but the AI can provide that experience. That's number one. Number two, sustainability, even with AI and some of the things that go into that, have become not a luxury, but in many ways a necessity. And when corporations put out RFPs, that becomes an element of what they want for their employees, right?
Absolutely.
So speak to all of that.
Yeah, so just real quickly on that.
Let the hoteliers take that question. That was directed specifically at the hoteliers.
I'll throw it just a quick comment out there. If so, from top to bottom, there are some that all scales in the industry. I think there are a few areas where we can all benefit from AI, and it's actually not terribly cost prohibitive. Number one, most people are using AI now as part of their search for travel, right? And so therefore, we all know that AI, we can use it to influence distribution, and we can answer the questions that people have about the place they want to stay. Number two, I think all of the brands, again, I'm sure from Wyndham economy all the way up to the Four Seasons, are looking at ways to use it for revenue optimization. That's very important, right? Number three, AI is now getting incorporated into labor productivity and scheduling, right? So, and how we manage that. Number four, we're starting to see these opportunities to drive energy procurement as well as management at facilities. And then another interesting area I think is popping up is we're going to be seeing AI used for F&B menu engineering, right? And I say menu engineering, right? It's not just, you don't just make a menu. There's a lot more that goes into it than that. But there's an opportunity to use AI for menu engineering as well. So our hotels, I think, will benefit as an industry across the board from AI. And none of those, that they all enable our people to deliver a better experience and run a better business. None of those things I talked about really remove a customer-facing employee away from the business.
What's the Quinta doing?
So a couple things. We do have our virtual AI assistant concierge that we use to help take some pressure off our agents as well. The calls coming in, the inquiries coming in, and we really want to make sure that that guest in front of that agent gets that service. So AI has been quite useful for that. To Charles's point, is also our some of our revenue management opportunities to go in and monitor our competitors to make sure that our rates stay relative. Is also quite important. But the thing too that we have to think about is, and he just said it in terms of, you're making money, and so you also have to reduce the cost, and these things also help you reduce the cost. You don't have to worry about someone calling down to ask what time's your pool closed, because the system knows. They understand the common questions. They know how to answer those questions. What's the nearest coffee shop? All those questions get handled. The guest feels taken care of, but it's not necessarily from the voice of a person. So, and that's what matters. That goes back to serving two masters in terms of saying, my mom wants this kind of interaction and other people want this kind of, you have to offer them both. And so how do you do that and keep costs down? So I think revenue management is really incredibly important. And I also think that the knowledge of the community and what to do in the area is also incredibly important. But I think that right now, coming, with these trends creeping up with ADR and RevPAR increasing, we see it and we hope that it stays, but everybody's also kind of like, how long will this last? Is it going to stay on a positive trajectory? So we're cautious, and so we still want to make sure that we're giving amazing service and also being respectful of what we're asking our owners to do, and making sure that if we're asking for new brand standards, that there's an ROI for it.
And on the subject of AI, let me get on this.
It's got the
let me-
next word here.
Hold on. Let me go to AI real quick while we're on the AI subject. AI is beyond just the software too. Let's kind of differentiate the two. So when you're speaking AI, even engaging and requiring your leaders and teams to be, fantastic with Claude, with ChatGPT, charting who our competitors are in certain markets. These are the amenities that we offer. What amenities do they offer? What's the differentiation between them and us as a brand? What can be brought to the table? Make it a 5-pager, make it a 3-pager, make it a 1-pager, then share that with your team. That's how AI can also be engaged to essentially eliminate the need for a vice president or director, because that tool is working for you to make these brands better.
So, Ron, you had some thoughts.
No, just I don't want to repeat anything. I think that predictive analytics for consumer patterns, right? So I think someone said earlier, you got a family of 4 come into the hotel, how that insight would predict and drive action from the staff to be able to get ahead of what that could look like is an interesting piece of it. The other side of it is just something called AEO. Everyone knows what SEO is, which is like, basically optimizing search. Brands corporately, but I would also encourage you, if you're an owner in a local environment, you have to actually teach the system how to talk about your brand, right? And so when someone's going to Asheville and they search Asheville, you want your brand popping, and that's not going to be done by the corporate office. There's got to be a good balance between what the corporate things can do and what you can do locally that actually touch to how people are going to search, because people got their phones, right? I'm not going to the hotel AI concierge. I'm going to my own, right? So when I go to my own, are you going to pop up for me?
Yeah.
Or is your value going to come through? That is a huge area that I think a lot of folks are not investing in that they need to be.
So that was a great conversation, panelists. Thank you so much. That was really amazing. So please show your appreciation for that was an incredible conversation.
Thank you.
And thank you again,
I'm
and
really proud of you.
have a good day. Everybody will see you a little later.
You're fantastic.
Thank you.
I felt it. Your story needs to be told more. People
See you. All right.
And I am probably the least person to like.
That was A View from the Top with Charles Oswald of Aperture Hotels, Stephanie Barial Kendrick from La Quinta Inn and Suites, Ron Cole from Pronghorn, and Kevin Kelley from Kevin Kelley Concepts and Kitchen and Cocktails Restaurant. Special thanks to our breakfast sponsors, PepsiCo and Direct TV Hospitality.